Many of you know that the June 2025 UGC NET exam felt like a nightmare for all the students and also for the teacher, especially the questions from the unit that was totally, it was like out of syllabus. And also the question paper was too tricky, the questions was lengthier, the answers were even the lengthier, and the students were totally tricked by this exam that they have experienced. So hello everyone, today we are going to dive deep into the June 2025 UGC NET English Literature exam, a paper that many students described as one of the toughest papers in recent years. In this session, we will carefully analyze the questions, tricky areas and hidden patterns of this exam. You know, there were so many questions that should have been dropped, but NTA did not drop any questions eventually at the end. So in this video, importantly also, how you can prepare smarter for the next attempt. To stay ahead, do subscribe the channel with English with Shabnam ma'am, and let's start the class. June 2025 exam, here we are going to solve. So without delay, let's start the class. So here is the first question on your screen. June 2025. J25. You have to match the list 1 term with list 2 its meaning. There is a short abbreviation, and here in the list 2 there is full form. So you have to find out this short abbreviation correctly match with which one of the options given in list 2. And here the options are also. So we won't take much time because we all have seen. So we just want to find out what exactly and how exactly we should tackle the question. So here the question is, I have mentioned everything to explain you every possible way. This question tests knowledge of Latin abbreviations used in academic and scholarly writing, especially in research citations. Okay, so how you have to match? ET square, you have to match here. Let's match. Location citation, when I see this question first time, I match location citation with the place. So see if we will match with the second, we can find in the option 3. Okay, so let's see. Option 3 here. ET square matched with and the following. IDEM first, the same. Location citation in the place. I guessed location. It was my. So I was not aware about this, but let me tell you, I just guessed and find out here the word location, and it, as per my guess, I matched this with place. So, I just want to tell you that while solving the questions, not only the bookish knowledge, but overall and common sense or sensibility that how you should understand the thing is also matter. But I know I can totally understand when we sit in the examination hall now, we totally get blackout. Everything is like when we see the questions, especially question like this, and there are so many questions that we will see further. We totally our mind is like fading, so we are not able to understand the correct thing. So I can understand, but still, it was my suggestion that always, especially in the exam such like this, you have to be very sensible. I told you that this question, this abbreviation tested your Latin knowledge, that how much you are aware about the Latin abbreviations that used in academic scholarly and research research paper when we write. So here it is mentioned, and the following it sequence, the same item means loc cited, that means loco citation, that refers back to previously cited exact location in a text, and this one used to cite the same author again to avoid repetition, and this one refers to the subsequent pages, paragraphs in a cited sources. Okay, and the last one, pasim, means everywhere, indicates that a point or theme appears throughout the text. So throughout the text here matches with everywhere. Okay, so this is how we can understand. If there, then let's move on to the next question, everybody. There are some questions, one liner or memory based, are extremely easy. So here the term chronotop has been coined by, options we have Mikhail Bakhtin, Stephen Greenblatt, Bertolt Brecht and J.H. Miller. Chronotop. This type of term, every time, each time, one or two, we will definitely face it. So chronotop is the term given by Mikhail Bakhtin. Okay, Mikhail Bakhtin. Here, Mikhail Bakhtin, the word chronotop comes from the word Greek. Chrono means time and topos means space. In which sense he has described that in which time and in which space means a location where, space means where the work has been written or the event took place. So this is what he has described here. He wants to mention. Okay. So it was the term introduced by Mikhail Bakhtin, a Russian literary theorist, in his essay Forms of Time and the Chronotop in the novel. What is the significance of this term? This term refers to the way time and space are configured in a narrative part. That means literature, written work. It helps us understand. What does it help us to understand? How time and space shape plot, character and genre of the work, and also how narrative worlds function in realism, modernism, etc. The example of chronotop term you will have here in a Gothic novel, the castle is a chronotop. Time. There was a time, in this particular time, this is the theme, technique or any other genre were popular. So it also defines the space, that means isolated eel, and the flow of time, that means trapped, mysterious past. Also, you will find this term in a picaresque novel, the road is a chronotop, and that signifying moment and the episodic time. Episodic time, you know, time, how important for the work, for any event. So this is what chronotop means, chrono, time, and top means space. So this is how you can remember. Move on to the next question, everybody. Then we have another question. Question number 53. Even the memory-based questions were also tricky. You know, the study of how human beings acquire language and how we use language to speak and understand is called theoretical linguistics, sociolinguistics, applied linguistics, and psycholinguistics. Do read the questions very carefully. When I started teaching you since 4 or 5 months ago, and the exam were about to start in June, so I was keep reminding and telling you, suggesting you in my all videos that do read the questions once, twice, thrice to find out the exact meaning that what they are asking. Break the, I know in exam there are so many questions and we lack time. We lack time, and even if the questions are lengthy, then definitely what will be the situation, I can totally get it. So the study of how human beings acquire language, how we acquire language, and how we use language to speak and understand. There is three things. The first, by human, when human acquire language, how you learn. We have first, second language, first language acquisition, second language acquisition that we acquire. First one we have the native language that we speak, and the second the English language that we acquire from other countries, and how we use those language the language we have acquired, then how we speak and understand. This is the three. So all these things related theoretical base. No, there is not only one thing is mentioned. So this is all going to be the wrong. Socio-linguistic related to majorly focus on social part. No. Applied linguistic, how language applied in literature or linguistics. No. So understanding, acquire and speak, it is related with our mind. So this is going to be the correct answer. Psycholinguistic, and psycho means totally defined our brain, our mind. So always break the questions, okay? So the correct answer of this question will be option 4, psycholinguistics, and it was the correct by NTA also. So here psycholinguistic is the branch of linguistics that combines psychology and linguistics. Both that psychology and linguistics here becomes psycholinguistics. Do watch the videos, because by solving these questions we will find so many extra knowledge. We will grab so many extra knowledge. It deals with cognitive process that relates to our mind, how we think, like memory, learning and speech processing. So here the three things is mentioned: memory, learning and speech processing, that is related with the psycholinguistic. So we can understand the question is going to be the related with psycholinguistics. It is also important for fields like child language development, language disorders and second language learning, the ESL. It focuses on language acquisition, how we learn and acquire language comprehension, how we understand and spoken or written input, how we understand the spoken part of somebody else or the written part of the work. Language production, how we form and express sentences after acquiring, after understanding how we express in a sentence. Now, how we speak. So, this is what psycholinguistic means. Let's move on to the next question, everybody. Here, do understand that theoretical linguistics that studies language structure, including syntax, phonetics, etc. Sociolinguistic examines how language varies across social groups. Applied linguistics here applies linguistics theories to solve real world problems, that means in teaching. So that is why these options are incorrect. Now let's see what are the next question. Now throughout the video, I have to increase and decrease the size because of the length of the question. So it's fine. You have to manage, okay? Now here, question number 54. Arrange the following core elements of list of the work cited according to MLA Handbook 9th edition. Arrange, you have to arrange the following core elements of the list of the work that cited according to MLA handbook. According to MLA handbook 9th edition, there are 8th edition, 7th edition, but 9th edition is the latest one, and you have to go through this, okay? So 9th edition, you have to arrange all this: publisher, title of source, author, title of container and publication date. That means in 9th edition MLA handbook, which thing comes first? How we arrange, how we cite. So if the questions are easy, we won't take too much time, okay? But still you have to watch the video till end. So correct answer of this question is the first thing we always mention here, option 4, C. Second, title of the source. Third, we can go with D, title of container. E, publication date, and the last one, publisher. So let's see. In MLA 9th edition, the core elements of a citation that follow the correct order when creating a works cited entry, we have the first, author, title of the source, title of the container, publisher, and publication date. Okay, so these are the correct order of the MLA 9th edition handbook. If there is anything wrong, you can notify. Now, this was the question that was became the center part of that, whether this question should be dropped or not, whether this question should be challenged or not. So there was a confusion between the options here, but let me read the question first. According to the 1991 census, dash languages are considered scheduled languages. Options we have 17, 18, 20, and 22. 17, 18, 20, and 22. According to the 1991 census, there are so many changes keep going in the government part. They keep changing everything and adding and discarding. So we have to keep an eye on them also. 1991 census they are talking about. So there were so many questions and answers were also that for 22 is going to be the correct answer, but the correct answer was of this question was option 2, 18. How? As per the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, 18 languages were recognized as scheduled languages by the time of the 1991 census. And these include here Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmiri, Konkani, Malayalam, Manipuri, Marathi, Nepali, Uriya, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, Urdu, Bodo, Dogri, Mathili, and Santali. These were the scheduled languages as per the 1991 census, 8 schedule. But the confusion was between 22 and 18. Why? Because initially there was 14 languages and then in 1967 they became 15. The constitution listed 18 languages, but by 1992, 71st amendment and later in 2024, 92nd amendment, 4 languages were added. And after adding these 4 languages, it became 22. So there is clearly mentioned 1991 census we have to follow. So according to that, we will go with the option 2, 18 scheduled language. And if they will talk about 1992 71st amendment or 92nd amendment, then we can choose the option 322 language. These were the confusion. I hope it is clear. Option 4, 22. Now let's move on to the next question. If you want the PDF now, I will share this on Telegram. Okay. See, these questions, how would I arrange to show you the option? Is it visible? Yeah, it is. So you have to match the least one with least second. Collocation, inflected, polarity, and generative. And here list two, a term borrowed in the 1960s from mathematics into linguistics by Noam Chomsky. Option 2, a term for the contrast between positive and negative in sentences, clauses, and phrases. Option 3, a term for the contrast between positive and negative in sentences, clauses. Option 3, a habitual association between particular words, or option 4, a term in which a word takes various forms to show its grammatical role. So what would be the correct answer? Which one you have choose the correct? Collocation, inflected, polarity, and generative. You know now how the June 2025 paper was structured, more theory versus history versus criticism, and also the questions were too tricky. They have compared with earlier papers. If we compare, they have compared, but everything was totally different. Unexpected twist happened. So correct answer of this question, option 2. Option 2, collocation, we will match with 3. A frequent pairing of words in usage like make or decision or strong T. Collocation, you are combining a frequent pairing of words. You are pairing the words in a usage like make a decision or strong T or break a leg. Inflected, inflection, derivation, I hope you have studied. When a word changes form to indicate grammatical roles, that is go and it became went in the past. Polarity, the contrast of affirmative versus negative meaning in phrases and sentences. Contrast affirmative positive and negative sense. Then we have generative, a linguistic system that can generate all grammatically correct sentences, coined by Chomsky in the 1960s using concepts from mathematics and formal logic. So these are the correct answer of the question number 55. Question 55, no? No, it's 56. 56. Okay. Now, question number, how much I have to reduce the side to, oh, okay, let's read the question first, then yeah, this was the question. I am still in doubt because whenever I'm going to find the answer of this question now, each time I'm getting something new. So that is why I have written here doubt. Even every teachers is also in doubt because of this question. I will tell you why. So here the choose the correct statement. We have to find out the correct statement about all these options given here, from the options given here. So English literature was first offered as a subject of study at King's College, London in 1831. Okay. Then option B, English was first offered as a subject of study in England only in 1828 in the universities of Oxford and Cambridge. Option C, though taught as a medium of instruction and a subject of study in India since 1850s, Oxford and Cambridge did not allow the new subject of English literature to be taught till the end of the 19th century. Then option C, you can increase your phone size. Option D, you are all right. The questions are too lengthy. In 1931, English replaced the study of classics in Greek and Latin, the language of the church in Oxford and Cambridge. Option C is saying till the end of the 19th century, literature meant only the study of great books in classical languages like Greek and Latin in Oxford and Cambridge. These were the options. I tried, but here is the options A, C and E only, A, B, C and D only, A, B and E, B, D and E. So let's see. As per the NTA, the correct options was option A, C and E. A, C and E. English literature was indeed first offered as a subject at King's College London in 1831. This was also I found correct, but still correct. English was option C is also correct. English was part of instruction in India earlier, but elite institutions like Oxford and Cambridge delayed acceptance until the late 19th century. Then option E is also correct. Until the late 19th century, literature in elite universities meant Greek and Latin text, not vernacular or English. So this was the matter of the confusion here. These two options were incorrect. Okay. So these questions, if any of you have found the correct, if this is correct, you can simply comment, or if this is incorrect, you can also notify. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question. Question number 58. Again, it's too lengthy. Because of the length of the questions, I give the space between the sentence so that you can understand and read properly. Let me read the question. Read the following statement carefully and choose the correct ones. Again, we have to choose the correct answer from the given options. So first one we have a mixed metaphor conjoins two or more obviously diverse metaphoric vehicles. B is saying in metonymy a part of something is used to signify the whole. Option C, to scan a passage of verse. is to go through it line by line to analyze its content, theme, and diction. Option D, the term canning denotes the recurrent use in the poems written in old Germanic languages of a descriptive phrase in place of an ordinary name for something. On option E, figurative language is often divided into two categories, and the one category is tropes and the other one schemes. So we have to find out the correct options. This is the question from the linguistic part. So, which is going to be the correct answer, everybody? Here are the options. Option A, D, and E only. Option B, C, and E only. B, C, and D. A, B, and D. Correct answer. So, it was the question that the correct answer was A, B, and E. Let's discuss. Correct. A mixed metaphor combines mismatched metaphors, that is, we will burn that bridge when we come to it. This is the example. Option D was also correct. A kenning is a metaphorical phrase in Old English and Norse poetry. Option example here you have whale road for sea. E was also correct. Sorry. Tropes involve a shift in meaning like metaphor. Schemes involve form patterns like alliteration and chiasmus. B. Why is it incorrect? This describes a synecdoche, not metonymy. In metonymy, something associated stands for the thing, that is the crown for monarchy. But this thing describes the synecdoche. And see why it is incorrect. The process described is close reading, not scansion. Scanning focuses on meter, syllable, and rhythm. Scansion. But here C is incorrect. So here the correct answer option A, D, and E. Okay. Canning is correct. Why? Because it is an old English Norse poetry. It's a compact metaphor that replaces a common noun. Okay, do remember it's a that replaces a common noun. Now let's move to the next question. Again, now there are lines you have to find and match with the correct writers, authors given in the list too. So question number 59. One day I wrote her name upon the strand, but came the waves and washed it away. This was the first option. Second, option B, under the greenwood tree, who loves to lie with me and turn his merry note unto the sweet bird's throat. Option C is saying, the curfew tolls the knell of parting day, the loving herd wind slowly o'er the lea. And D is saying, remember how we picked the daffodils? Nobody else remembers, but I remember. Here are the authors Thomas Gray, William Shakespeare, Ted Hughes, and Edmund Spenser. And here are the options. I can't decrease so much the size of the PDF because you won't be able to see properly. I hope you do understand the situation. Options here. Daffodils. Daffodils is also one of the popular work by which writer? Wordsworth. So let's see. Option A 4, B second, that means option 2. I hope you all have went with this option. Option 2. One day I wrote A, you can match option. One day I wrote her name upon the strand, but came the waves and washed it away. A with 4 you can match. This is the line that is taken from the sonnet 75 by Edmund Spenser, part of Amity. Okay. Sonnet 75 is very, very important, and also sonnet 80 or 81 and sonnet 79. I have prepared the notes. I will tell you which sonnet you can prepare. Then you have under the greenwood tree. Remember the keyword. These lines are from the song in William Shakespeare's play As You Like It. So this is also correct. Then we have the curfew tolls the knell of parting day. These lines is the opening line of Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. So C we can match with first. Then the last one we have here. Remember how we picked the daffodils? It is by the Ted Hughes poem Daffodils, which reflects on his memories with Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath, the psychopathic writer. This is a line from Ted Hughes' work. Okay. Move on to the next question, everybody. Now, here is the question number 16. Again, you have to choose the correct definitions of language. Definitions of language. So, one thing there is an error in this. While solving the questions, here I mentioned that this was partially wrong. Why? Because the language here uses the language use symbol that have unconventionalized meanings. It is wrong. Language is not unconventionalized but conventionalized. So that is why you can go through. Option A is saying language uses symbols that are primarily vocal but may also be visual, and its subfields are phonetics, phonology and writing systems, orthography and non-verbal communication. Okay. B is saying language is used for communication, correct, and its subfields are sentence processing, pragmatics, discourse analysis and conversation analysis. Then option C is saying language uses symbols that have unconventionalized meaning, and its subfields are universal grammar, inanitates, emergentism, neurolinguistics and cross-cultural analysis. Option D is saying language is a systematic means of communication ideas or feelings by the use of conventionalized signs, sounds, gesture or marks having understood meanings. And option E is saying language has reason specific characteristics and its subfields are phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, discourse analysis and lexical analysis. And here are the options. So by we have reached with the to the question number 60. One thing, there were so many questions based on a statement. They have given the long definition, lengthy definitions, so that students can consume the time by reading the question, reading the options. We can simply say that it was a totally trick for the students by NTA. Initial of a few questions were too lengthy. The options are too lengthy. So option A, B and D. A is correct. Why? Because this is a comprehensive view. Language is both vocal and visual. That means think sign language, written scripts and subfields like phonetics, phonology, orthography and non-verbal communication are well recognized. Then option B is also correct. Why? Because language is indeed used for communication, correct, and feels like pragmatic sentence processing and discourse analysis that deals with the functional use. Yes, we use the language to communicate and to share our thought, our feelings to one another. So it is also correct. C is incorrect. Why? Because the statement mentions symbols with unconventionalized meanings, which contradicts the nature of language. Language relies on conventional meaning, not unconventional. So this is incorrect. Option C is also correct. Why? Because a standard textbook definition of language, it's a system of sign and gesture used for meaningful communication. We use our hand gesture, we use our expression, eyes, we use our lips to show some sort of expression that how expressive or how we are speaking to leave the impact what we are saying on the listener. So, and option E, why it is incorrect? Because although region specific features are true, but this option is overlapping with dialectology and sociolinguistics more than general language. definition, and also the term lexical analysis. So if we will go to this term lexical analysis, this option will be discarded. So that is why option B, A, B and D is the correct one. Okay. Now question number 61. According to Ferdinand de Saussure, what is the minimum number necessary to complete the speaking circuit? According to Ferdinand de Saussure, we have to find out that what he has given the minimum number that is necessary to complete the speaking circuit. What and how we are speaking, in which way we are completing. So, minimum circle he has given option 2. What is that? According to Ferdinand de Saussure, the speaking circuit or speech circuit involves two participants, a speaker, that I am speaking, who encodes and sends the message, and listener, you are the listener, you are listening what I am saying, what I am explaining, what I am telling you. Okay, so who decodes and receives it? So two, speaker and a listener. Two, because there is a speaker and there is a listener. It happen again. Two, because there is a speaker and there is a listener. Okay. So Saussure's communication model explains language as a social phenomena requiring at least two people. There should be two people. The first one should be the speaker, and if there is a speaker, there must be a listener to whom you are sending the message. There must be a decoder to keep the conversation going. Okay, so communication to occur. Language is a social product of the faculty of speech and a collection of necessary conventions adopted by a social body according to the Saussure. So that is why the minimum number will be two, the speaker and the listener. Now, so this was the pattern of NTA. Few of the questions from 51 no, 51 we have started, and 61, and this is the 62. Linguistic part they have followed. Linguistic part majorly their definitions given the writer. One-liner was also there, and historical questions, history-based questions, language-based questions. So linguistic part was important. So note down that you should not miss this part. I have uploaded the introduction part of this video for the December exam. You can watch. The first thing that you have analyzed, linguistic should be the focus. Linguistic part should be the focus. I told you, not only the literature part, but terms, theories, and linguistic. These are the four things. While covering the literature, we have to go through all these four things. That is part of the literature. Also English, part of the English, actually not the literature. Literature is totally different. And paper one, I hope you are all preparing for this one also. Paper one, I will bring few questions for this. Okay. PYQs I can bring, or if there is important questions that we have teaching aptitude, so we can cover. Now again, there is a statement question, and we have to find out the correct statement. And this is from the literature. So Miller's play The Crucible was first written in verse. Then The American Dream is a play by Edward Albee about the absurd situation and immediate realities. C. The American Dream is a novel by Ionesco about the problems of middle-aged professional. D. He is saying Miller's play The Prize is set in a Baroque palace in Eastern Europe, teasing social and metaphysical sophistication. E. is saying Miller's play The Prize explores the extent to to which we retrospectively invent our own history. And here are the options. See if this can fit. How much we have to struggle in June 2025. The student struggle so much. So let's see option 4, A, B and E only here. We'll discuss and finish the question fast, okay? I will bring the December, after this now we will solve the December question, 2024 December. Then December 2023 we will go. So A is correct. The Crucible was indeed written in verse-like structure and not a verse but in prose, mixes historically resembling the rhythmic speech of the Puritan era. It uses elevated diction and speech pattern. A is correct. B is correct. Also, The American Dream is a famous absurdist one-act play by Edward Albee, 1959, that criticizes superficial family who values and American Idol. American Idol. And C is incorrect. Why? Because this is factually wrong. Eugene Ionesco did not write The American Dream. It is here mentioned that it is written by Edward Albee. It's by Edward Albee. Ionesco wrote The Bald Soprano, Dinosaurs, etc. The Journey, this type of work Eugene Ionesco has written. And question option D, what is he saying? It is also incorrect. Why? Because the price is not set in Baroque Palace in Eastern Europe. It's set in New York, inside a condemned apartment, dealing with themes of family, memory, and sacrifices. Option E is correct. Why? Because one of the core themes in the prize is how individuals reconstruct their past to justify or question the present, that is, inventing history in hindsight. So that is why question here, option A, B and E is the correct answer. Now move on to the next one. If they have given the questions from, one thing you have realized that initial few questions were majorly focused on the linguistic part, na? Then the second thing, if they have given the questions from literature, what they have given, they have majorly focused on core history, depth. That means deeper knowledge is required here. We have to go in the history to get the deepest knowledge. If they are asking the questions by going to deeper, we have to go deepest. Again, it's a lengthy questions. You students were absolutely right. They are totally mad. The NTA, the examiner, they don't even care how students face situations. They struggle by doing a lot of hard work day and night, and this is how they've set the paper. Totally what should I say? I don't have even word to describe these people. So here, arrange the following statements chronologically now. You know, in initially few questions, if you will see now, chronology questions, that is chrono and matching. The questions were in a sequence manner. That means if we have seen the memory-based questions, we have seen the one-liner statement-based assertion reason type of questions. Now they follow the pattern that from 51 or from 71 or from 91, few questions all together will be based on chronology, and similarly they followed to matching questions also, but here they have mixed. So third thing you will find in the June 2025 question, that they have not followed the pattern, they have discarded the pattern. by putting the chronology matchology questions in a sequence, that 10 questions will be chronology altogether, 5 questions will be matching altogether. They have discarded this pattern. They have followed, they started with the matching questions. There will be differentiation in each type of set of the question paper, but there should be the mismatch. So the third thing you have realized that they are not following the exam question paper the earlier they used to follow. So arrange the following statements chronologically and order of their appearance in Aristotle's Poetic. Okay. So the plot is the end at which tragedy aims. Second, regarding the plot, a whole is what was or has a beginning and a middle and end. C is saying the plot of the tragedy should have a unity. The component incidents must be so arranged that if one of them be transposed or removed, the unity of the whole is dislocated and destroyed. I will get blind by reading such a small font. The character in question must occupy a mean between these extremes. He must be a man who is not preeminently virtuous and just, and yet it is through no badness of or villainy of his own that he falls into the misfortune, but rather through some flaw in him. And option E is saying the function of the poet is narrate events such as might occur in accordance with the laws of probability or necessity. You know, it's like they have pick any random lines from the work. See how lengthy the options are. Here are the options, everybody. So this question was also chronologically, if we go here, plot, time, unity, everything is mentioned as per Aristotle's poetic work. So A, B, C, E, D, option 4, it was correct. A option mentioned in chapter 6, B option in chapter 7, C option in chapter 8, E option in chapter 9, and D option in chapter 13. So by opening these chapters, they have picked the random line. Statement E, the function of the poet is to narrate events such as might occur in accordance with the laws of probability or necessity. This appears early. So option E appears early, but here chapter 9 will be the first one. So option according to this going to be the this first. There is an error. Chapter 9, so around the chapter 9 here, where Aristotle distinguishes between poetry and history and emphasizes that poetry deals with universal and probability, option E should be the first. Okay, then statement D, the character in question must occupy a mean between these extremes. So option D will be the second. So chapter 9 and option D, option E, then option D. Then we have option B. A whole is what has a beginning and middle and end. So this is the option B mentioned in chapter 7. Option C, the component incidents must be so arranged that if one of them be transposed or removed, this is mentioned in chapter 8. So this comes after B. Then statement A, the plot is the end at which tragedy aims. This is discussed in chapter 6, the earliest chapter defining the 6 elements of tragedy, where plot is given primacy. So according to Aristotle, Poetic, that discusses in which he discusses tragedy primarily in terms of its structure and elements such as plot, character, thought, diction, etc. So the logical flow in Aristotle's structure generally starts with unity of plot, option C, then moves to character D, then followed by the purpose of plot, option A, then its structure B, and ends with the function of the poet, that is E. So here this would be the correct chronology. Option C, unity of plot. Option D, nature of tragic character. Option A, final cause of tragedy. Option B, structure of complete plot. And option E, purpose function of the poet. So there are something wrong. According to this option, we can go with the option 3 C, D, A, B, E. This one, no? Then this was the correct given by the NTA. Do clarify, everybody. I can now totally understand the condition of all the students who have appeared in June 2025 exam. They have randomly picked any line from all the chapters. But even the students are also confused that which option will be first. How much lengthy they are. So question number 64. For Arnold, culture is the ability to know what is best. Option B, the ability to know what is worst. Option C, the mental and spiritual application of what is best. And option D, the pursuit of what is best. And option E, the pursuit of what is worst. So first to mentioning about the ability to know what is best or worst, and option D and E, these two mention pursuit of what is best and worst, and option C is totally different. The mental and spiritual application, that what should be the best or worst. So here are the options, and as per this option A, C and D. Ability to know what is best. Option C, the mental and spiritual application of what is best, and D, the pursuit of what is best. Now let's discuss. In Matthew Arnold's Culture and Anarchy, he defines culture as a study of perfection that rooted in the pursuit and application of what is best. A study of perfection according to Matthew Arnold. So Arnold emphasizes the knowledge of the best that has been thought and said in the world. She is saying it's not just about knowing, but spiritually and mentally applying it to life. What we learn, we apply mentally and spiritually. D. Culture is pursuit. It implies constant striving towards self-perfection. Okay, and B and E, why they are wrong? Because Arnold's culture is not concerned with what is worst, but he is trying to make you focus on what is best, and your ability should check that what is best. That is not about the culture, the concern, but with identifying and pursuing what should be the best, it should depend on you how you should analyze. Then next question we have here. Who said that Shakespeare was the Homer or father of our dramatic poets? Johnson was the Virgil and the pattern of elaborate writing. See, again, in one question, they have asked so many things. I want to kill them. Who said that Shakespeare was the Homer or father of our dramatic poets? Matthew Arnold, John Dryden, Samuel Johnson, Ben Jonson. So the correct answer was option 2, John Dryden said this. This quote is attributed to John Dryden, who wrote it in his preface to Troilus and Cressida, 1679. Shakespeare was the Homer, this was the line he gave, or father of a dramatic poets. Johnson was the Virgil, the pattern of elaborate writing. In this, Dryden draws classical analogy. Homer, he mentioned Homer, that means raw poetic genius like Shakespeare. And Virgil, he mentioned polished and scholarly like Ben Jonson. So this was his aim to portray them like this. So Dryden, being a neoclassicist, often compared English writers to classical figures to measure literary greatness. To check the greatness of the person, how great they are, their work and their persona, they used, John Dryden used to compare them with the classical figures, classical writers. Okay. Next question we have, again, it's too lengthy. Oh God. Read the questions, everybody. Okay, let me read. So what this question is saying, again, it's a statement based. So don't you think they have discarded the assertion and reason question, and instead they have put the statement based questions so many. So what the fourth thing you have realized, that the pattern they have created in the previous few year exams, they have discarded those patterns and they have created the new thing. Statement based questions are there so many. So in this again we have to find the correct ones. Charles Lamb was a lifelong friend of Coleridge and defender of the poetic creed of Wordsworth. Option B, the London crowd with its pleasure and occupations never attracted Charles Lamb. C is saying Charles Lamb gave us the best pen portrait of the Coleridge, Hazlitt, Landor, Hood, and many more of the interesting men and women of his age. Option D, Charles Lamb wrote essays of Elia, tales from Shakespeare, and the revolt of the Tartars. And option E, Lamb was especially fond of old writers and was apparently unable to express his new thoughts without using their old quaint expressions. And here are the options. The statement is about Charles Lamb. The fourth thing we have find out, you will realize. Option 3, A, C and E. How and why? Option A is saying Lamb was indeed a close friend of Coleridge and admired Wordsworth's poetry. Option C correct. Why? Because his essays include vivid and affectionate pen portraits of Coleridge, Hazlitt and others, writer mentioned in the option. Option E correct also because Lamb's prose often mimic the style of older writers, full of archemers and quaint expressions. Okay, so A, C, and E are the correct one. And why option B and D are incorrect? Because Lamb loved the London and crowd and the city life. Much of his writing reflects his attachment to urban life. Also, the Revolt of the Tartars was written by Thomas de Quincey, not Charles Lamb. So that is why these two options we can discard. Move on to the next question. If the options are shorter, the questions are lengthier. This thing. And if the questions is shorter, the statement, the options are too lengthy. Who amongst the following attempted to reconcile discrepancies discrepancies between various classical authors such as we have Plato, Aristotle, as well as between philosophy and poetry? Sir Philip Sidney, Longinus, the Neoplatonist John Dryden. Who among all these writers tries or attempted to reconcile discrepancies between various classical authors, the various classical figures? Example is also given here, Plato, Aristotle, as well as between the philosophy and the poetry. So you can say that any of these have tried to attempt to create a peace, bring peace. So the answer was the Neoplatonist. The Neoplatonist, especially the thinkers like Plotinus, Proclus, and later Renaissance figures influenced by them. They played a crucial role in reconciling Plato and Aristotle, treating their philosophies as complementary rather than contradictory. Plato's work and Aristotle's work, they have how they have described the poetry. One of them has said, Plato has said that the poet should be disbanded, banished from the world because they create a messy thing, and in response to his work, Aristotle tried to and defend poetry by giving so many terms. So that is why here these writers, the Neoplatonist known including the Renaissance figures, they try to reconcile them. They try to bring them together. Instead of they should be contradictory, they should face each other, conflict between them. They try to complement them so that they can get back together. Now, bridging philosophy and poetry, viewing poetry as a form of divine inspiration and a vehicle for philosophical truth. Interpreting myth and metaphor in classical literature as symbolic representations of metaphorical realities. And also the Neoplatonists laid the groundwork for later Christian and Renaissance thinkers who sought harmony between reason and imaginations. So the Neoplatonist writers were majorly working to bring the peace, harmony. The writers who keep, you know, you can understand. Why not the other options were correct? Because Sir Philip Sidney in Apology for Poetry, he defends poetry from Puritan attacks, but he doesn't deeply reconcile Plato and Aristotle, so that is why we can discard him. Longinus focuses on sublimity in literature, especially rhetorical and emotional power, not reconciling philosophy or poetry, so these two options we can simply eliminate. Let's see the next question. Here the John Dryden is also mentioned. John Dryden as a critic and poet, he compared classical and modern literature. We have seen in one of the questions earlier, and poets like Chaucer and Shakespeare, but he didn't engage in reconciling any of the writers. He used to compare between the modern and classical writers, but he never tried to reconcile them. Let's see the next question. Now, which of the following is not a distinct discourse analytical research? Distinct discourse analytical research not of any of these options. Research tradition as suggested by Margaret Wetherell et al. According to this person, you have to find out that not a distinct discourse analytical research tradition. So it is discursive psychology, Bakhtinian research, Sausarian research, Foucauldian research. Answer everybody. So this was the option that here option 3 Sausarian research was not mentioned. So in Discourse Theory and Practice, a reader in 2021, the work Margaret Wetherell identified 3 key traditions in discourse analysis. 3 key traditions. And as per his 3 discourse analysis, discursive psychology was there that focuses on how psychological themes like memory, identity, attitudes are constructed in talk. Second, Foucauldian discourse analysis that focuses on how discourse shapes power, knowledge, and subjectivity influenced by Michel Foucault. And the other, Bakhtinian research that draws on Mikhail Bakhtin's ideas of dialogism, heteroglossia, and the social nature of language. So Sausarian, there is no space for him. So why Sausarian research is not a tradition here? Because Sausarian Ferdinand de Saussure is a foundational to structural linguistics, not directly a discourse analytical tradition. He is a linguist. His work laid the groundwork for semiotics and structuralism, but when we talk about discourse analysis, we cannot include him. Especially critical or social forms moved beyond Saussure's focus on language as a fixed system. So that is why these options were eliminated. Now, next question we have here. Again, now I can't see the question first. And you know how I'm feeling that you have only 3 hours, and in 3 hours there is a 150 questions and 100 questions are lengthier. Still, how much time? And the students, while reading such lengthy questions, they were must be thirsty so many times. And while reading long questions now and continuous in a continuous manner, it affects our mind, and the way it affects we sometimes started reading the thing in a wrong. The spelling is going to be wrong, the statement we are reading is wrong. So this was the impact and effect while reading anything continuously. So I can totally understand. Okay, in this statement question also you have to find the correct one. You know, there is no elimination, but they are asking to choose the correct one. And in this, if whether they have focused one writer in the statement question or whether they have mixed the world literature writers, the statement, the theories, the terms. So what this statement is saying, Patrick White, Christina Stade and Robertson Davies are the famous Australian novelists. Okay. B is saying the notion of civilized barbarity was anticipated in H. Rider Haggard's 1887 novel Alan Quatermain, in which civilization is said to be only savagery, silver guilt. C is saying novels like French Latin's Women, Midnight Children, and Waterland deconstruct traditional notions of history and subjectivity. D is saying O'Brien's Country Girls trilogy and McGahon's The Dark, which were banned in Ireland, were published during the 1950s. And E is saying he is saying the trauma of the mid-century years accounts for the prevalence of dystopian elements in novels like A Clockwork Orange, Leonard, and The Handmaid's Tale. So all the options are mixed matched. So the options of this question was option B, C, and E. Sorry, B, C, and E. Option 3. Option 3. How and why Patrick White, Christina Riestead, and Robertson Davies are the famous Australian novels. This is incorrect. Patrick White and Christina Steed are indeed Australian novelists, but Robertson Davies is Canadian novelist, so we can eliminate this option. Okay, B is correct. Why? Because the notion of civilized barbarity was anticipated in H. Rider Haggard's 1887 novel Alan Quatermain, in which this line is accurately here attributed to Alan Quatermain. The phrase critiques imperialist assumptions reflecting early recognition of the thin veneer of civilization. Thin veneer of a civilization. So this option is also correct. B is correct. C is correct. Why? Because novels like the French Latin's Women, Midnight Children, and Waterland deconstruct traditional notions of history and subjectivity. Okay. And option D is incorrect. O'Brien's Country Girls trilogy and McGahon's The Dark, which were banned in Ireland, were published during the 1950s. Incorrect. The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien was published in 1960, not 1950s. So The Dark by John McGahon was published in 1965. So both are incorrect. Both were banned in Ireland but not published in 1950s. Okay. So here the option E, why it was correct? Because the trauma of the mid-century years accounts for the prevalence of dystopian elements in novels like A Clockwise Orange, Leonard, and The Handmaid's Tale. All three novels contain strong dystopian themes. So they reflect these works, they reflect anxieties about violence, state control, identity, and gender that is shaped by post-war trauma and Cold War fears. So this was the correct statement. Simply, they have mixed match.